What if I told you the secret to a thriving garden isn't a fancy fertilizer, but something you already have in your kitchen cabinet? Prepare to be amazed as we uncover how a common household ingredient can utterly transform your barren soil into a vibrant living ecosystem. You won't believe how simple it is to bring your garden back to life. When you walk through your garden and notice plants that refuse to thrive despite your best efforts, when seedlings struggle to establish themselves, and when even your most tolerant vegetables seem to barely survive rather than flourish, you're witnessing the devastating effects of dead soil. This silent killer affects countless gardens today, and the signs are unmistakable once you know what to look for. Your soil might be compacted, hard as concrete when dry, or it might have that dusty, lifeless appearance that crumbles through your fingers without any structure. Perhaps it drains too quickly or becomes waterlogged at the slightest rain. These are all symptoms of soil that has lost its most precious resource, the invisible army of microorganisms that make everything work. Beneath every healthy garden lies an entire universe of life that most gardeners never see but absolutely depend upon. We're talking about billions of bacteria, fungi, protozoa, and other microorganisms working in concert to break down organic matter, cycle nutrients, suppress diseases, and create the soil structure that allows roots to breathe and water to flow properly. When this microbial community collapses, whether through excessive tillage, chemical overuse, compaction, or simply neglect, your soil becomes essentially sterile. It might contain mineral nutrients, but without the biological component, those nutrients remain locked away in forms your plants cannot access. Traditional approaches like dumping on synthetic fertilizers might give you a temporary boost, but they do nothing to address the fundamental problem, and often make it worse by further suppressing microbial life. You can't fertilize your way out of biologically dead soil. You need to resurrect the living component first. Here's where things get absolutely fascinating, and I promise you'll never look at your sugar bowl the same way again. Sugar, plain white table sugar, or even molasses, becomes an incredibly powerful catalyst for jump-starting soil life because it provides exactly what dormant or struggling microorganisms desperately need: immediate, accessible energy. So, think of it this way. Microbes are living creatures that need food to survive and reproduce. And while they can eventually break down complex organic materials like leaves and wood chips, that process actually takes time and energy they just might not have when their populations are really depleted. Sugar, on the other hand, is like offering them a 5-star buffet when they're starving. When you apply a diluted sugar solution to your soil, something pretty remarkable happens within just a few hours. The simple carbohydrates are immediately available to soil bacteria, which begin reproducing at explosive rates. As bacterial populations boom, they become food for larger microorganisms like protozoa and beneficial nematodes, which in turn release nitrogen and other nutrients in plant-available forms as they digest the bacteria. Meanwhile, fungi begin extending their high-fall networks, creating the living infrastructure that improves soil structure and helps transport nutrients and water throughout your garden. This cascading effect, this microbial feast you've started, creates a thriving soil food web from what was basically a biological desert. The real beauty of this approach is that you're not feeding the plant directly, you're feeding the soil ecosystem, which then feeds the plant in that complex, balanced way that nature really intended. This fundamental shift in perspective, from feeding plants to feeding soil life, represents the cornerstone of regenerative gardening practices that build long-term soil health, rather than creating dependency on external inputs. Let's get practical, because understanding the theory is one thing, but applying it successfully in your own garden is where the magic truly happens. For most garden applications, you'll want to create a sugar solution using approximately 1 to 2 tablespoons of white sugar or molasses per gallon of water. If you're dealing with particularly depleted soil or heavy clay, lean toward the higher end of that range, while sandy soils that drain quickly might benefit from more frequent applications at the lower concentration. Mix your solution thoroughly until the sugar completely dissolves. Then apply it to your soil using a watering can or hose end sprayer, ensuring you're targeting the root zone of your plants and any bare soil areas you want to revitalize. The timing and frequency of application matters considerably for optimal results. Your first application should be done when the soil is already moist but not waterlogged, ideally in the early morning or evening when microbial activity is naturally higher due to more moderate temperatures. For severely depleted soils, you might apply the sugar solution weekly for the first month, then taper to bi-weekly or monthly applications as your soil life rebounds. In healthy soil maintenance mode, a monthly application during the growing season is often sufficient. The key is observing your soil's response. Within days of application, healthy soil should appear slightly darker and have an earthy, rich smell as microbial populations explode and begin their work. However, there are critical pitfalls you must avoid if you want success rather than disappointment. Never apply sugar solutions to bone-dry soil, as the sugar can actually draw moisture away from plant roots through osmosis before microbes can utilize it. Similarly, avoid overusing sugar, as excessive applications can create anaerobic conditions or feed pathogenic organisms alongside beneficial ones. The goal is stimulation, not saturation. Also, understand that sugar alone isn't a complete solution. It's a catalyst that works best when combined with other regenerative practices like adding compost, minimizing tillage, and maintaining living roots in the soil as much as possible throughout the year. The changes you'll observe after implementing sugar applications can be genuinely dramatic, and I've seen gardeners become emotional when they witness their garden's resurrection. Within the first week, you might notice your soil becoming slightly softer and more workable as bacterial slimes and fungal hyphae begin creating aggregates. By the second or third week, plants often display noticeably darker, greener foliage as nutrients become available through increased microbial activity. Root systems expand more vigorously into soil that's now alive with beneficial organisms creating channels and producing substances that stimulate root growth. Many gardeners report that their watering needs actually decrease as their soil structure improves. As the soil's water-holding capacity increases, thanks to the development of organic matter and microbial biomass, plants just seem to thrive with less effort. The domino effect of healthy soil goes way beyond just getting bigger plants. You'll probably notice improved pest resistance as your plants become more vigorous, and as beneficial soil organisms step in to help suppress root pathogens. Disease pressure often drops dramatically in biologically active soil, where those good microbes outcompete the harmful ones for resources and space. Your harvest quality usually improves too, with vegetables showing better flavor and nutrition when they're grown in soil with robust microbial communities. These communities provide a complete spectrum of nutrients in balanced proportions. And honestly, this isn't magic. It's just nature doing what it does best when we stop interfering and start supporting the biological processes that have sustained plant life for millions of years. Integrating sugar applications into your broader garden care routine should feel natural rather than burdensome, and, honestly, the key is viewing it as part of a holistic approach rather than a standalone silver bullet. Combine your sugar applications with regular additions of organic matter, like compost or wood chips, which provide the complex carbon sources that sustain microbial populations long-term after the initial sugar boost. Minimize soil disturbance whenever possible, as tillage destroys fungal networks and bacterial colonies that you've worked to establish. Keep something growing in your soil year-round if your climate allows, because living roots exude sugars and other compounds that continuously feed soil life, creating a self-sustaining cycle. Dansan. The broader shift happening in gardening today toward regenerative practices represents nothing less than a revolution in how we understand and work with our gardens. For too long we've approached gardening as a battle against nature, using chemicals to force results while inadvertently destroying the very systems that create true abundance. By embracing biological approaches like sugar applications to stimulate soil life, we're rediscovering ancient wisdom that's now supported by cutting-edge soil science. We're learning to work with nature rather than against it, building systems that, over time, become more productive and resilient instead of more dependent and fragile. Your garden's incredible journey toward vibrant health really begins with a single step, just one application of sugar water that awakens the dormant life in your soil. I encourage you to experiment with these techniques, observe the results carefully, and adapt them to your specific conditions and challenges. Every garden is unique, and honestly, you'll become the expert on what works best in your particular ecosystem. Document your progress with photos, keep notes on what you observe, and don't be afraid to adjust your approach as you learn. If you found this guide valuable and want to keep learning about regenerative gardening techniques that actually work, make sure you're subscribed to the Living Soil Lab. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss our upcoming videos on building truly thriving gardens from the ground up. Share this video with fellow gardeners who might be struggling with poor soil, because together we can transform not just our own gardens, but our entire approach to growing food and cultivating beauty. Let's build living soil, one garden at a time.